BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
We do what we like. We do what we could. In the end, it's all good. In my Bronx backyard.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Bronx Magazine, where we spotlight the people, places, and the events that make the beautiful Bronx the truly unique place that it is. I'm Derek Woods, outside of Bay Plaza here in Co-op City. Before it was built in the early 1990s, it lay on a rubble-strewn, weed-infested lot. But so many Bronxites remember it as so much more. Once upon a time, it was a magical, magical place called Frredomland.
Now, this may be Indian territory, and it may look like the Old West, but the time is today, and the place is Frredomland, a big entertainment park in the Bronx, in the state of New York, just half an hour by subway from Times Square in New York City.
It was only in existence for 4 years, but its memory truly lives on today. A recent discussion on the amusement park was held at the Pelham Bay Mansion Museum. Led by Thomas X. Casey, the author of Bronx Views and a Frredomland expert, the discussion drew over 150 attendees, proving that indeed, Frredomland can still draw a crowd.
Well, I grew up in Co-op City, and I went to Bronx Science, and I remember telling my volleyball coach that I lived in Co-op City, and she said, "Frredomland? That's where Frredomland is." So when I heard that that we could actually get Tom Casey to come and talk to us about it, I thought, absolutely we should have him come. And I didn't realize what a following he has, and that we would have so many people here today. We were bursting at the seams.
Well, the first thing I tell them that is Frredomland was one of the greatest amusement parks that ever existed, and the most important thing about it was it was in the Bronx, right in Bronx, New York City. It was generally where the shopping area is, where Bartow Avenue exit on the New England Thruway exists today, and a bit of the east coast of Frredomland was where some of the other buildings, Ash Loop, which exists today, some of the buildings are right there. That's one of the number one questions. I guess number two, surprisingly, is everybody's always asking what were the lines to Frredomland. They remember the commercial, "Mommy and Daddy, take my hand, take me out to Frredomland," but they just can't remember the second and third line, which is 50 cents is all you'll pay at Frredomland today. People always forget how inexpensive Frredomland was for a child to get in, 50 cents.
Groundbreaking ceremonies were held in 1959, and less than a year later, Frredomland opened its doors to record crowds and hype. Over 60,000 people, more than twice the number anticipated, came to Frredomland on opening day, with jammed-in customers and long lines forcing the park to stop selling tickets and even close I-95. It was an omen of bad things to come. Covering 85 of a 205-acre lot, at the time it was indeed the world's largest entertainment center, larger than its West Coast rival, a little place called Disneyland. In fact, one of the planners, C.V. Wood, a Texas designer, had previously worked in the planning, construction, and management of Disneyland.
Well, first of all, it was an extravagant amusement park. It would cost $65 million. And the entrepreneurs of Frredomland, Ted Rayner, William Zeckendorf, and others, they decided to put in, they spared no expense, and we created an amusement park with entertainment and history. This was quite different from most amusement parks around the country.
The park had a variety of themed areas, each representing a location and era of U.S. history, including Little Old New York, Chicago, the Great Plains, San Francisco, Southwest, New Orleans, and Satellite City. Feature attractions might seem tame by today's standards, but were crowd pleasers back in the day.
Hey, what's happening over there in Chicago? Fire! Look at that! It's the Chicago Fire of 1871. Hurry up, men. We're going to need volunteers for this one. Everybody man the pump. We've got to get water on the fire or the whole city will go. Faster, men. Keep that pump going. Mrs. O'Leary's cow has kicked over a lantern, and the flames are spreading fast.
Well, one of the first things you come across when you get to Freedomland, the heart, you look up in the sky and you see these small, what were called ore buckets going to the Tucson mine. They went from the northeast of the United States, Chicago specifically, down to the southwest. They were 60-foot high cable cars that allowed people to get on the cars out in the open and crisscross the United States. Now, what was very unique about it is that this did not exist anywhere. And we had the parachute jump in Coney Island, but you went up and came right down. This one, you went across the United States. It was about a 10-minute trip, and you got a tremendous view of the entire Bronx and the entire amusement park.
Here's Paul Anka. Tell us, Paul, what Freedomland's got. Hey, I can't tell you that in a minute, but come on, Paul, let's go, go, go. Come on out to Freedomland for the greatest time you've ever planned. Fun and thrills go hand in hand at exciting Freedomland.
There was also a big entertainment venue called the Moon Bowl, which attracted some of the top talent of the day, including Chubby Checker, Benny Goodman, Pat Boone, and Xavier Cugat, to name a few. Bobby Darin performed here in '63 in a downpour and collapsed afterwards. Other big names include Lionel Hampton, Count Basie, and even a young Marvin Gaye.
Well, what's important about Freedomland, it was very, very local, and it was larger than Disneyland. And people had an opportunity to either take a bus or a train right in their own backyards and go to Freedomland. And quite a few people took advantage of that. And many, actually I found out, many couples met their spouses or future girlfriends or boyfriends right at Freedomland.
But Freedomland could never really live up to its promise. It started under a black cloud when 6 unfinished buildings were demolished by fire and had to be razed before opening day. A stagecoach overturned and injured 10 people just 6 days after it opened. 2 months later, the front office was robbed of $28,000 by 4 armed men who made their getaway in a boat. And it went downhill from there. By 1964, they had tried everything to stem the decline and mounting debt. But the opening of the World's Fair in Queens was among the many final nails in Freedomland's coffin.
Two big points are the World's Fair. The World's Fair opened in April 1964. Freedomland was already on a tremendous decline by that point in attendance. And the entrepreneurs were trying to salvage Freedomland with more amusement rides. Another theory is a conspiracy theory that William Zeckendorf, who owned the land which Freedomland was built on, had to wait only 5 years until he could build Co-op City. Meaning, if the buildings that were at Freedomland lasted 5 years without sinking into the ground, because Freedomland, that ground, the 85 acres, was on some soft ground, if the buildings could last 5 years, then the city would allow William Zeckendorf to build high-rises, Co-op City. I don't think that's really true as the reason why Freedomland closed in 5 years. The reason was financial. Freedomland was undercapitalized. It was a $65 million project which was mostly financed by bank loans. This was a tremendous debt for Freedomland to carry, and that just doesn't even cover the operating expenses for salary and insurance. From my opinion, as time went on, less people started going to Freedomland. I think it was because of the car. Most young adults who had children, such as I was a 10-year-old at the time, my parents finally bought a car in 1961, a '59 Rambler, and started going many different places over the weekends, which cut down, I'm sure, on Freedomland's attendance. A matter of fact, Freedomland's attendance dropped off on weekends all through their history, and it was much more populated during the week.
On September 14th, 1964, citing competition from the World's Fair, Zeckendorf and partners filed for bankruptcy, and Freedomland was torn down later that year. It had lasted just 5 seasons. But even today, Freedomland lives on in a variety of places. Many of the rides are still in operation in small amusement parks upstate and across the country, including the legendary Tornado and Danny the Dragon. Bronx author Richard Price's best-selling novel bears the name of the park, although used in a fictional location. Freedomland memorabilia trades well on eBay and a variety of sites, including a virtual Freedomland where Rob Friedman gives visitors a virtual tour of the park. In fact, footage of Freedomland sells regularly at the popular expatriate site backinthebronx.com.
It sells very well. I'm startled how many people love the Freedomland and want to see moving pictures of the actual thing. And they're hoping to see maybe themselves there because, it's quite possible they could have been in some of those shots. And it's experiencing, it's almost like being back in the Bronx in the 50s and 60s. As you see the movement, you feel you're in there and you can kind of remember it.
But truly the memory of Freedomland burns the brightest in the hearts of the children who walk the lanes of the Bronx's own Magic Kingdom.
Great way to remember the Bronx in the days when those of us that are over 40, as he would say, remember the good old days. And it was a great place. I went there as a kid myself a few times. I was kind of young, so I don't remember everything, but it was a super place, and I'm glad that he's bringing this history to life.
I guess because it doesn't exist anymore, number one. Number two, that it was right here in the Bronx, especially. It was a little difficult to get to unless you had a car.
Well, I think as a Bronxite New Yorker, we are historically a people who enjoy nostalgia. And just going back to the good old days helped me. So I told everyone that I knew to come because I knew they would enjoy it. I mean, obviously, that was just so heart-wrenching for me to just go look at those pictures. I remember that.
Now it's time we got back on solid ground again, back to the Bronx in the state of New York. So long.
The 1964 World's Fair truly was a mixed bag for the Bronx, although it was a great excuse for massive public works projects throughout the New York City area. In fact, this next clip that I found was opening day of an amazing engineering feat that thousands of Bronxites wake up to each and every day.
On this day, January 11, 1961, the new administration building would be dedicated and the new Throgs Neck Bridge across the East River would be open to first traffic. This great bridge will be a vital link in the network of arteries to the fair. On the Bronx Plaza, hundreds gathered to celebrate the dedication. Distinguished officials now cut the ceremonial ribbon, and the Throgs Neck Bridge is officially opened. Hundreds of cars form a cavalcade for the trip to Flushing Meadow and the new administration building. First traffic over the bridge. From the bridge, the cavalcade speeds along the new Clearview Expressway, then makes the turn into the Long Island Expressway. Millions of visitors to the fair will travel this identical route.
All right, I'm digging into the archives a lot for these clips, but I know a lot of you will find them very interesting, including myself. So don't go away, we have plenty more Bronx Magazine right after these messages.